Good evening, you're watching Gravitas. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. Lots happening on the Iran-US war front. We'll get you all about it. Let's get started. Tonight we get you the latest on the Iran-US war. President Trump has just posted ahead of his Situation Room meeting a long post with several claims. We get you more about it. Also, even as the United States would have the world believe that it is winning the Iran war, the reality seems different. We get you how Iran is setting the rules and controlling the war against American and Israeli forces. Not just on the battlefield, Iran has seemingly understood the game of strategy and patience. Mobile data could be exposing the location of American troops on the battlefield. The Pentagon has now revealed that this location data has reportedly been used by adversaries to monitor and target U.S. personnel deployed in conflict zones. We get you all the details. And dramatic visuals showed the scale at which New Glenn rocket from Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin company exploded during a test in Florida. The failure is a massive setback to NASA's plan to set up a lunar base and send humans back to the moon in the next 2 years. All right, let's get to the big breaking news coming in from the United States of America. President Donald Trump has now said that he's making a final decision on whether or not to strike a peace deal with Iran. Here's what he said in a long post that he's posted on Truth Social. I will be meeting now in the Situation Room to make a final determination. He has also stressed that Iran must never agree never to have nuclear weapons. He said the Hormuz Strait must be immediately open, no tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. He's spoken of nuclear dust as well, where he said that nuclear dust will be unearthed by US and will be completely destroyed. He's gone on to say that he will be meeting now in the Situation Room to make a final determination of whether or not a peace deal will happen and what happens next. However, remember, there has been no clarity if Iran is party to all of these. These are claims that have been made by the American President Donald Trump. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, meanwhile, has said that the deal depends on an end to the excessive US demands. So that's where it stands. We have an earlier reaction from Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran. The US president now claiming that he will be making a final decision on what happens next, on how the deal goes forward. But a very long post where he's made several claims and made a threat as well. And that is that if the naval blockade continues in the Strait of Hormuz, United States forces will be the ones who will attack. More importantly, he's not just talked about the Strait of Hormuz, but he's talked about nuclear dust as well. And there, the crucial bit is that he has said that America will be unearthing the nuclear dust in coordination and in conjunction with Iran. So that is the interesting bit. He's also said that the Hormuz reopening will have to be done without any toll. He's talked about money as well, where he said that no money will be exchanged. No clarity yet on what this money is. There have been several reports speculating a lot from the Iranian side, what they're demanding, how it will go forward. But remember, these are all that are claims that have been made by the American president. We don't have any official reaction to this particular post from the Iranian side. Let me quickly go across to my colleague Susan Teherani. She's joining us live from New York at the moment. Susan, this is a long post, several claims and a threat by Donald Trump. He's talked about nuclear dust. He's talked about the Strait of Hormuz. Particularly in the case of Strait of Hormuz, he said that no toll should be given or taken. And in nuclear dust, interestingly, he said that we will work in coordination and conjunction with Iran. That's a step down from the earlier stance of the United States, where the president was threatening Iran with more attacks.
Where this is going to be headed, but we have to look at the president's post in the wider context of what has happened in the past 24 hours and the reporting that we've gotten. It appears that he's alluding to that so-called memorandum of understanding, which both sides had indicated they're close to agreeing to. It was interesting that President Trump, it's not clear whether this was poorly worded or whether or not Iran had set a condition that America's naval blockade be lifted before they can move forward. But the president said ships caught in the strait due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted. Now, that's the part where we're not sure whether or not that's going to happen immediately or whether or not he meant once an agreement is reached. Also, in the last 24 hours, it wasn't just news of this memorandum of understanding. It was news that Abbas Araghchi met with Omanis. It was reported that Marco Rubio met with his Pakistani counterpart Ishaq Dar. And it was also, again, reported that Steve Witkoff and Araghchi had sort of come to an agreement. What we don't know is, in the last 24 hours, was whether or not Iran was on board to make some kind of agreement with the United States. Now, President Trump going in the Situation Room, despite the fact that this meeting was on his schedule since this morning, is very timely. It's going to be very telling on whether or not the United States, first of all, has a green light from the Iranians or not, or whether or not they want to continue some sort of extensive attack. Because these skirmishes that have happened in the last few days, they could have continued, and they were anticipated by a lot of military analysts that they would continue even through the negotiations. But to sort of make this Situation Room meeting a final call, a determining call, is very noteworthy. But again, as you mentioned, we have to wait and see whether or not the Iranians are even going to reply to something like this. You mentioned Abbas Araghchi had replied about an hour ago, but whether Iran is on board or are they going to just push back as they have? Because a lot of the demands in this post are the same demands that the United States has been having for the past few weeks, if not months, and Iran has not budged. So what makes President Trump come out and put this post out once again on a Friday, we'll have to wait and see.
That's right, Susan. We will have to wait and see how this moves forward and what really happens and whether a final decision, at least from the American side, is made after that meeting. I'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Susan, for tracking this meeting for us. We'll keep coming back to you for the latest from America. Well, with that, let's also tell you how the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. I'm not saying this. This is ancient Chinese strategist and author Sun Tzu, who's written it in his book, The Art of War, 2,500 years ago. Today, these words exactly describe what Iran is doing to the United States. On the 28th of February this year, Washington would have dismissed this as impossible. But today, many believe that Iran and not America is setting the rules of this war. For decades, remember, the United States defined the battlefield in West Asia. American aircraft carriers moved, governments reacted. American sanctions hit and economies trembled. It was the American presidents who drew the red lines and allies lined up behind them. But today, that has changed. Has Iran succeeded in forcing the United States to fight on Iran's terms? Is Iran playing Donald Trump? Well, let's quickly show you what the United States has been saying since the last few days. On the 27th of May, US President Donald Trump did not give a clear answer when he was asked about the deal or the time frame to end the war. In fact, he even called Iran a crafty negotiator.
Is there a line that they would cross for you to go on the offensive again militarily?
Well, a deal that wasn't going to be good for us is the line, ultimately, because, I'm playing it out and we're going to see, and that's what I do. I negotiate, they negotiate. They're very good negotiators. They're crafty. But in the end, we have all the cards because we've defeated them militarily. Well, I think we're doing very well. I think they're starting to give us the things that they have to give us. And if they do, that's great. And if they won't, then the man on my left is going to finish them off.
Meanwhile, Iran has said that it is taking time to sign the peace deal because they want to make sure that everything is in line with their interests.
About what the actions of Americans and what they are saying. What matters to us are the official messages we receive, and naturally, Iran will not accept anything that is not in line with our interests and those of our country. And this is the reason it is taking a few days, to make sure everything is in line with our interests.
Meanwhile, on Thursday, Vice President J.D. Vance did not look very optimistic about Iran's nuclear weapons stance. He said that there are a couple of issues regarding the nuclear stuff, and we're going back and forth with them on that. Listen into what he said.
If you look at what we've already accomplished here, assuming that we're able to get to a final agreement here, we're reopening the Straits of Hormuz. We've already decimated their conventional military, and we're in a position where we could substantially set back their nuclear program, not just during the term of this president, but over the long term. That's a very, very good thing for the American people. So we're not there yet, but we're very close, and we're going to keep on working at it.
Now, Vance's statement, remember, comes days after President Trump seemed to have toned down his rhetoric against Iran and posted a post on his Truth Social where he said, and I quote him, "The enriched uranium, nuclear dust will either be immediately turned over to the United States or preferably in conjunction and coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran." He said this a few days ago, and he said this today as well. A suggestion of a coordinated framework instead of threats and abuses. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, meanwhile, has been giving motivational speeches to the military despite the U.S. struggling to end the stalemate with Iran.
And as the president said, I'm lost on time, 2 days ago now, in the cabinet meeting, I'm sitting right next to him. He looks in the camera, he says, well, Iran can either do it the right way, with a deal across the table, or they can deal with my guy on the left. That happened to be me. But it's not me, it's you guys.
Now, the Strait of Hormuz still remains under Iranian control, even though America says that it is owned by nobody. In fact, Iran has renamed its toll to environmental cess. Multiple reports suggest that Iran is demanding $24 billion from the United States in exchange for reopening the Hormuz. Let's look at the battlefield too. The United States entered this war believing that its overwhelming military superiority would deter any escalation. Washington and its allies expected air superiority, strategic intimidation, and economic isolation to force Iran into retreat. Instead, the conflict expanded because Iran appears to understand something very critical in this war. That America's greatest vulnerability may not be military weakness, it may be strategic exhaustion. Iran cannot destroy the United States militarily, and Tehran knows that. But here's the interesting bit. Iran may not even need to do that. Its strategy appears built around something much more realistic, making the cost of confrontation politically, economically, and globally unbearable. Look at the Strait of Hormuz. One narrow waterway, nearly a fifth of the global oil flows through it. And every time tensions rise there, markets react instantly. Oil prices move and shipping insurers panic. Governments from Europe till Asia start making emergency calculations, and suddenly a regional war once again becomes a global economic crisis. That is leverage. And Iran understands this leverage. Tehran believes time favors endurance, not dominance. And that creates a very dangerous equation for Washington. Donald Trump demands visible results. The Iranian leadership, meanwhile, is known to tolerate long-term pain. And this difference matters enormously in this war. Now consider another example. Every escalation by the United States risks widening the war. We've seen that in Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, and the UAE. American bases across the region suddenly become vulnerable pressure points. Military planners must calculate multiple fronts simultaneously. It uses up more time, more resources, and the cost rises. This is not a story of American defeat because Iran has also suffered enormously in this war. Its economy remains under severe sanctions. Its infrastructure has been damaged. But for years, America operated in a largely unipolar environment, one that it created for its own dominance. But now, rivals and adversaries increasingly believe that American power has its limits. Iran often frames the conflict not as a military contest alone, but as resistance against American pressure. Iran's leadership understands that perception itself can become a weapon, and multiple countries today question whether the United States is a reliable partner or not. So while America may still dominate in raw military capability, Iran has dominated strategy of the traditional battlefield. Iran has proven strategist Sun Tzu's words right, that the art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Even as a ceasefire remains formally in force in Gaza as well as in Lebanon, Israel is on the offensive. It has escalated the war in Lebanon by launching a deadly strike near Beirut. On the other hand, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered a further territorial grab of Gaza. Addressing an event in West Bank, Prime Minister Netanyahu revealed that he had instructed the IDF to seize 70% of the Gaza Strip, up from the 60% that it controls as of now. This is in clear defiance of the US-brokered ceasefire, which mandated IDF forces to withdraw to the yellow line that encompasses 53% of Gaza.
We are currently squeezing Hamas. We now control 60% of the territory of the Gaza Strip. You know that. We were at 50, we moved to 60, and my directive is to move to, go in order, first 70%. Let's start with that. We squeeze them from all sides. We will deal with what's left.
While visiting IDF troops in a border area, Netanyahu revealed that Israeli forces have crossed southern Lebanon's Litani River and they're operating in Beirut as well as Bekaa.
From here, the battle against Hezbollah in the north is being managed, and I must tell you that there are very impressive results here. Our forces have crossed the Litani. They have moved up to the commanding terrain.
Well, the IDF also announced the killing of Hamas's deputy commander, Imad Hassan Hussein Aslim, who allegedly led the group's fighters who crossed over into Israel during the October 7th massacre. Meanwhile, in a fresh escalation, an Israeli strike hit a building in Gaza City's Shati refugee camp. However, no injuries were reported as residents moved out of the area after receiving a warning. Now, the city of Khan Yunis also came under fire. Flames engulfed a warehouse after being struck in an Israeli strike, which showed civil defense workers struggling to put out the fire. As the Israeli onslaught continues, displaced Palestinians express their anger at Netanyahu's target to control 70% of Gaza.
When he occupies 70%, where do we go? When we were displaced to the sea, he took all of the Gaza Strip. Does this mean he's going to take it again? 70%? Where do we go? To the water? To the sea? There is no space. Where are we to go? Where do we flee to? This is an unjust decision.
As per reports, the death toll in Gaza has risen to 72,819, while over 172,000 others have been injured. Since the October ceasefire itself, 922 people have been killed by Israeli aggression. Moving on to Lebanon, the situation remains dire there. The IDF has claimed to have eliminated over 2,500 fighters allegedly belonging to Hezbollah since the 2nd of March, when Israel began its war. As per the United Nations, 11 children have been injured or killed on an average every 24 hours in Lebanon over the last week.
Okay. I'm waiting now.
As the Israeli strikes continued unabated, visuals showed smoke billowing from a locality in southern Lebanon. Now, the war saw major escalation. An Israeli strike hit a building in Beirut's southern suburb of Shou Efat. This was the first strike to hit near Lebanon's capital in weeks. Earlier in the day, IDF jets hit the southern Lebanese village of Ain Kana, damaging several houses. Smoke was seen rising from the site after the attack. While Israel claims its strikes are directed at only Hezbollah, the ground reality is stark. The Lebanese army announced that a soldier named Ala Medlej was also killed in an Israeli airstrike. Emotions ran high today as a number of people joined his funeral procession.
This is the martyr of the homeland. We hold our heads high with pride because of him, God willing, and God willing, we will return victorious.
Right, from one war to the other, Russia's war shadows are now stretching beyond Ukraine. A drone hit an apartment building in NATO member Romania. It is drawing condemnation from both NATO as well as the European Union. While Romania and its NATO allies call it a grave escalation, Russia has distanced itself from claiming responsibility. Moscow has warned Europe against more drone incursions in the near future. Our next report gets you all about it.
Russia's war games are not just a nightmare for Ukraine anymore. They are now knocking at Europe's doorstep. Romania claims an explosive-laden Russian drone. Part of a swarm of 43 Russian drones hit an apartment building in Galati overnight, sparking a massive fire. But Moscow has distanced itself from these claims. The incident unfolded as Russia launched a fresh wave of drone strikes targeting Ukrainian port infrastructure along the Danube River. Galati sits on the border of Ukraine in Romania's far southeast. Just across the border lies Izmail, home to the largest Ukrainian port on the river Danube, and a frequent target of Russian attacks. Romania's defense minister identified the drone as a Geran 2, the Russian version of the Iranian-designed Shahed 136 drone. Though drone incursions have been common since the Ukraine war, Romania claims it's the first time that a residential building has been hit in the country. For many local residents, the horror of waking up to a drone strike was far too real.
Do we still have safety? Not anymore, right? It was intercepted around 010 or so, before it fell in the city, in the very center of Galati. And what did the army do? What did the defense do? We are definitely not safe in Galati anymore.
Though Romania scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets when the Russian drone was initially detected by radar, the Defense Ministry admits it faced challenges in neutralizing the drone.
All available data has already been analyzed to establish the exact sequence of events, and it resulted in the fact that there were no real opportunities to engage it safely. We are not facing an attack on Romania. We are facing the effects of a conflict taking place right next to our border.
Now, Romania has requested its NATO allies to accelerate the transfer of anti-drone capabilities to the country.
In the discussion I had with the NATO Secretary General, I insisted on expediting the process of getting more air defense equipment, and he fully agreed that this equipment should reach Romania as quickly as possible.
Both NATO and the European Union have criticized Russia over the drone strike. While NATO has called out Russia, the US asserts it will defend every inch of NATO. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen says Russia has crossed yet another line. The bloc has vowed to increase deterrence on the EU's eastern border.
The Chancellor stated that the drone incident in Romania demonstrates Russia's determination to further escalate this war. Germany firmly stands by its NATO allies, including Romania. We are, of course, ready to defend every inch of the alliance's territory.
The strike comes at a time when Europe is already on edge. Russia has deployed the nuclear-capable hypersonic missile, the Oreshnik, to Belarus, closer to Europe. And Ukraine is responding with long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
All right, with that, let's get you what all we have for you on the other side of Gravitas. American troops and warships are coming closer to Cuba, and what is the biggest build-up by the Trump administration so far? Will an invasion happen soon, or the plan will be called off? And in a rather concerning news, a young girl from Gujarat was killed in a knife attack in Canada, but her family was informed about it only 12 days later. We get you all the details. The same smartphone apps that people use every day for fitness, for maps and other things are now emerging as a major security threat on the modern battlefield. US military officials have reportedly confirmed that American troops deployed in war zones have been targeted using commercially available location data, raising concerns on how digital tracking tools can turn soldiers into easy targets for enemy surveillance and attacks. According to a letter shared with media agency Reuters by US Senator Ron Wyden, US Central Command said that it had received multiple threat reports about adversaries using commercial location data to track or surveil American personnel in active theaters of operation. The disclosure marks the first official confirmation that US forces have been reportedly targeted in an active war zone using commercially available location data. CENTCOM did not disclose specific incidents, but its area of responsibility includes the Gulf region, where, remember, the U.S. forces continue to face heightened tensions with Iran, especially around the Strait of Hormuz. The letter reportedly warned that location data can reveal where troops gather, how they move, and their daily routines. U.S. military officials said enemies could use such information to plan missile strikes, drone attacks, roadside bombings, or counterintelligence operations. Now, this data often comes from smartphones, fitness apps, smartwatches, and other connected devices. U.S. lawmakers have reportedly criticized the Pentagon for not moving quickly enough to protect troops and urged the military to disable potential identifiers on official devices. The dangers of location identifiers in the ongoing military operations have already been a major issue. Back in 2016, a U.S. defense contractor used commercially available location data to track special operation forces moving from American bases to a sensitive staging post in Syria. While in 2018, a fitness app's public heat map exposed the locations of secret U.S. and allied military bases in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Then in 2024, journalists from an American and 2 German media outlets analyzed billions of location coordinates obtained from a data broker and reportedly tracked movements around 11 U.S. military and intelligence facilities in Germany. During the Iran war in March then, a French officer reportedly exposed the location of the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle after recording a 35-minute run on a fitness app while exercising on the ship's deck. For months now, the United States has been quietly building up military power over Cuba. Warships, surveillance aircraft, fighter jets, and thousands of troops positioned across the Caribbean. At the center of that buildup is the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier strike group, which is loaded with guided missile destroyers, reconnaissance planes, and advanced military assets stationed in Florida, Puerto Rico, and other parts of the region. This kind of deployment is the largest U.S. force buildup outside the West Asian region. Officially, the White House says there are no immediate plans to invade Cuba. But as per reports, U.S. military planners have already gamed out multiple scenarios for possible action if conditions on the island deteriorate further. The buildup, remember, follows months of escalating tensions between Washington and Havana.
We hope that dialogue will prevail at this time, when the aggressive actions taken by the US government against Cuba cast doubt on the seriousness and responsibility with which it is approaching this process. We believe that the international community cannot stand idly by while an entire people is deprived of its means of livelihood, while an entire population continues to be punished for reasons of domination, and while a country is threatened militarily without any justification.
Under President Donald Trump, American forces have increased military operations across the Caribbean. This includes deadly strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats moving between South America and the islands. The U.S. pressure campaign against Cuba entered a new phase after the U.S. Justice Department issued an indictment against former Cuban President Raul Castro over the 1996 shoot-down of 2 planes. This escalation comes just days after CIA Director John Ratcliffe met with Cuban officials in Havana. Cuba says it was an attempt to improve dialogue with U.S. Cuban officials reportedly told the American side that Havana does not represent a threat to U.S. national security. At the same time, conditions inside Cuba are rapidly worsening. Severe fuel shortages triggered by sanctions and import restrictions have pushed the country deeper into crisis. Hospitals are struggling to function. Schools have been forced to shut down. Government offices are now operating at reduced capacity. According to the Energy Minister, Vicente de la Olevi, Cuba has now completely run out of imported diesel and fuel oil. The country's power grid is in a critical state, with rolling blackouts lasting up to 22 hours in Havana and sparking growing public protests across the island. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has recently described Cuba as a national security threat because of its ties with Russia and China. Relations between both these countries after the Cuban Revolution in 1959, remember, followed by the invasion of Bay of Pigs in 1961, a U.S.-backed failed invasion attempt to overthrow Castro regime. All right, moving on, the sacred relics of Arhant Sariputta and Arhant Mahamoglan, two of Lord Buddha's most foremost disciples, are set to be displayed in Mongolia in a landmark spiritual event. The exposition will take place from the 1st till the 10th of June, bringing together a rare moment of shared Buddhist heritage between India and Mongolia. Now, this initiative was announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the Mongolian president's 2025 visit to India. Take a look. In other news, France has buried one of the darkest and final remaining symbols of its slavery era. Nearly 2 centuries after abolishing slavery, the French Parliament has repealed the Black Code that once treated enslaved people as property and allowed them to be beaten, sold, raped, or even killed. Our next report brings you more.
The French National Assembly unanimously voted to repeal the Code Noir, or Black Code. The vote passed by 254 to 0, putting an end to a law introduced in 1685 under King Louis XIV to regulate slavery in France's overseas colonies. The law classified enslaved people as movable property and granted legal protection to slave owners. Its 60 articles governed labor, punishment, marriage and religion, while several clauses permitted brutal punishment, mutilation and the forced sale of enslaved people. French President Emmanuel Macron said the law should never have remained after slavery was abolished in 1848, and described France's silence over the issue for nearly 2 centuries as a form of offense. Macron further stated that France should not reject discussions around reparations for slavery, while cautioning against making what he called false promises. France was the world's 3rd largest slave trading nation after Britain and Portugal. Historians estimate that France transported nearly 1.4 million Africans to plantation colonies. The debate in the French Parliament turned emotional, especially for lawmakers from overseas territories whose ancestors suffered under slavery.
Today's vote is another step forward, a tribute to the men and women, to the children enslaved, to those men and women who were enslaved, and from whom I come.
Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
An American journalist stands accused of secretly working for China's intelligence network for years while allegedly trying to obtain classified U.S. government information. Thomas Y. Pokin II, the son of a former Texan politician, was arrested earlier this year. According to reports, Pokin allegedly operated under the direction of individuals linked to China's Ministry of State Security. U.S. federal investigators claim that Pokin worked with a handler identified as Kathy and helped identify potential American sources, supplied them with laptops and cell phones, and passed reports back to the Chinese operatives. The FBI reportedly said that Pokin admitted that he worked with individuals connected with the Chinese government as part of a conspiracy to obtain classified U.S. information. The investigation reportedly began in December of 2025 after U.S. customs officials stopped Pokin at a Washington airport and discovered 2 cell phones, a laptop, and $3,000 in cash in his luggage. As per reports, one of the individuals Pokin planned to meet was seeking a job in the Trump administration. Investigators reportedly claimed that Pokin believed that if this individual entered the government, there was a significant chance that that person could provide classified information to China. Authorities say that Pokin moved to China in 2010, worked for the Chinese state-run television and radio outlets, and later became an editor at a Chinese state news agency. U.S. investigators also allege that he met a former speechwriter linked to Chinese President Xi Jinping around 2017. Reports claim that Pokin made multiple all-expenses-paid trips to the United States between 2019 and 25, and he received nearly $100,000 US for reports allegedly shared with Xi Jinping. Now, the FBI alleges that agents later monitored a Washington hotel meeting where Pokin offered a source $100,000 in cash, a SIM card for covert communication, and instructions to deliver weekly reports meant to influence Chinese policy decisions. Well, the White House has a new message on aliens, but not the kind of people usually you imagine or seen in Star Wars movies. They're not coming from outer space. They're already here, and according to the Trump administration, ICE is tracking them. The White House this week launched aliens.gov, a space-themed immigration enforcement website that uses UFO-style language and science fiction imagery to spotlight illegal immigration across the United States. The site presents itself as an alien transparency project, but behind the satirical tone is a very serious political message. The platform features a live map of the country tracking what it calls alien arrests. It allows users to search immigration detentions by city, state, alleged crime, country of origin, and even suspected gang affiliations. The launch comes as the Trump administration continues to escalate its immigration crackdown by expanding detention operations, increasing ICE enforcement actions, and pushing a hardline public campaign on border security. But as the administration celebrates its enforcement push, growing questions are now emerging about the conditions inside immigration detention facilities. All this unfolds just a day after protesters gathered outside the Delaney Hall Detention Center in Newark. They raised fists and chanted against ICE crackdowns, as well as the treatment of migrants in custody. The protests come amid a deeply troubling investigation by the Associated Press as well. The investigation by AP found that at least 10 immigration detainees have died by suicide since President Donald Trump returned to office in January last year. According to AP's review of ICE records, autopsy reports, police documents, this is the highest suicide rate ever recorded in ICE custody for a single fiscal year. And the numbers are stark. Since October, 7 suicide deaths have already been recorded, even though ICE historically reported just 1 or no suicides in most years. The 10 suicides account for nearly 1/5 of all 51 deaths in ICE custody since January 2025. Detainees often face extreme stress after arrest, fear of being returned to dangerous conditions in their home countries, and deep isolation caused by language barriers and limited contact with family members. Now, the spike in suicides is intensifying scrutiny of the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown and the rapid expansion of detention operations across the country. The latest deaths follow a record-breaking and deadly year. In 2025, at least 50 migrants died in ICE detention, the highest number in more than 2 decades and the deadliest year since the agency was created. According to data from ICE, reports that single year alone saw more deaths than the entire 4 years of the Biden administration, during which 26 people died in ICE custody. "22-year-old Vidhi Megha, hailing from Gujarat Borsad town, was full of dreams as she headed to Canada for higher studies 4 years ago. However, her life was tragically cut short after being stabbed to death in Canada's Niagara region near the US border. Her family's trauma compounded further as it was informed about this 12 days after the incident, and they're yet to receive her body. Vidhi had completed a degree in business management. She was currently pursuing a healthcare-related course. The incident took place on the 15th of May at around 4:15 p.m. local time. The police received information about her body being found at a residence in St. Catharines, which is a city in Niagara. 3 days later, a 40-year-old man named Joshua Omar was arrested in connection with her murder. As of now, the police are viewing it as an unplanned killing, which carries a minimum sentence of life imprisonment in Canada. Her father, Kalpesh Bhai Megha, reportedly revealed that a drug dealer attacked Vidhi with a knife after she refused to give him money. Expressing his anguish, he appealed to the government to ensure that her body is returned to India at the earliest, so that her final rites can be performed.
My request to the government is that I wanted to provide my daughter's final rites here in India. Therefore, provide me with her body as soon as possible and send it here.
Meanwhile, local MLA and Gujarat Minister Raman Bhai Solanki visited the bereaved family. Speaking with the media later, Solanki revealed that he had spoken with the Chief Minister's office as well as the Prime Minister's office to expedite the repatriation of the 22-year-old student's body. The Indian consulate in Toronto also said that it was deeply saddened. It added that it was in touch with her family members in India and Canada and is providing all possible assistance for transporting her mortal remains to Gujarat.
I have spoken with both the CMO and the PMO regarding this matter to ensure that her body is returned to her family members without any further delay. In this endeavor, I stand firmly with her family.
Remember, Canada recorded the highest number of deaths due to violent attacks among Indian students abroad between 2018 and 25. In this time period, 17 students died in Canada, followed by 9 in United States, 3 in Australia, and 2 in Kyrgyzstan. Moving on, an Indian origin teen in the United States turned a year of heartbreak into a moment of triumph. Battling a tense tiebreaker round, 14-year-old Shrey Parekh became the new Scripps National Spelling Bee champion. But his road to the title was anything but easy. While he finished third in 2024, Shrey missed the cut for this national competition last year as he was suffering from fever that time. This time around, though, he left nothing to chance. In the last round, the final 2 competitors had 90 seconds to correctly spell as many words as possible, while Shrey spelled 32 words correctly. The runner-up, Ishan Gupta, got only 25 words right. His winning word was bromocriptine, which refers to an alkaloid used to help treat various health issues.
TRAGLIN.
Homeland.
HOMELYN.
Chikungunya.
CHIKUNGUNYA.
Bromocriptine.
BROMOCRIPTINE.
Kashaw.
CUSHAW.
Shrey, during the spell-off, you correctly spelled a total of 32 words. Ishan, you correctly spelled a total of 25 words, and that means that Shrey, you are the 2000.
And well, guess what his prize was? It was a whopping $52,500 US, a Scripps Trophy, and a Merriam-Webster reference library. The second runner-up was 12-year-old Georgia-based Sarv Dharwane, who had finished third last year as well. He held over 3 intense days at the Constitution Hall in Washington. This event featured 247 spellers in the age group of 9 and 15. What also stood out was that the top 3 spellers are of Indian origin. Overall, 31 out of the 37 Scripps Spelling Bee champions have been of Indian origin. All right, moving on to our health segment now. If you thought that climate change only affects temperatures, well, I've got news for you. A new study states that rising temperatures driven by climate change will dramatically increase heart disease, particularly in the United States. As per the study, when temperatures rise, the heart must work harder to keep the body cool, and the likelihood of developing sudden clots in the bloodstream increases. This extra stress on the heart due to high heat may lead to heart attacks or sudden worsening of heart disease, especially in the elderly or those with prior heart conditions. You see, when it's hot, your body radiates warmth to cool you down. That might feel counterintuitive, but shedding some heat from inside your body helps your core body temperature decrease. Now, some early warnings include severe dehydration, dizziness or fainting, heart palpitations, muscle cramps, and shortness of breath. This is a study done by researchers at the Case Western Reserve University, the University Hospitals, and the Louis Stokes Cleveland VA Medical Center. It estimates that higher temperatures could increase heart-related heart diseases by 200% by 2050. Researchers analyzed heart disease data in each county in the contiguous U.S. from 2010 to 16. The study also found that aging, independent of temperature increases, will contribute an additional 34% increase in heat-related heart disease by 2050, simply because there will be more older adults by then. So keep yourself hydrated. Take breaks in shade or in air conditioning, wear light clothes, and expand the green spaces around you. All right, with that, it's time to wrap this edition of Gravitas up. But before we go, we're getting you a viral video that is getting in all sorts of reactions from the online world. A viral video from Vietnam has been sparking a big debate online. This clip shows a group of Indian tourists performing Garba on an airport tarmac, with passengers stopping to watch as the dance unfolded near the boarding area. While some on social media called it a joyful celebration of culture, others questioned whether an airport tarmac was the right place for such a performance. Take a look at these visuals. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye. Good night.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
It's the perfect way to give the opportunity to Gujaratis, to Ahmedabadians, to come and experience Sri Lanka with the direct connectivity.
It's a $1.3 billion investment from our company for the Indian market.
Tourism will only grow where direct flights are. And we've seen that over the years. Every time any country asks us, how do we grow tourism, the first thing we tell them is have more flights or have direct flights.
Ahmedabad is the biggest market for tourism.
We have 1,500 crore rupees of outbound business from only in Gujarat.
South Korea is embracing AI in filmmaking. But what does it mean for its stories? Malayalam cinema is riding high on sequels. But what about its stars? Fjord scores a big win at Cannes, but will it dominate the Oscars? All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.